We're doing everything we can to, bring this thing in, and the way things are moving along, everything's scheduled that we could close and break ground in beginning of June as things are tracking right now. So, anything that we can do to, keep the picture, in the right light, and, just appreciate your help, and the uncertainty of potential future interest rate increases as they're talking about now, just makes everything that much, more uncertain, and why it's so important to get this locked down now if we can. I'm around for any questions if need be, but we do appreciate everybody's effort, trying to get this thing over the finish line in the last 2 years.
Thanks, Steve. We appreciate you today.
Good afternoon. I'm Kate Pett from Thrive Asheville, and I just wanted to pop up and share some good news with you. I was just on a phone call with a household that just signed a lease with a newly acquired affordable housing rental, thanks to the support of the county for the Buncombe Rental Assistance Collaborative. So that brings to date 98 households that have been able to access affordable housing through rentals because of your support of the Buncombe Rental Assistance Collaborative. I'll just remind you that that's Thrive Asheville, Helpmate, Homeward Bound, WinCap, HUD-VASH, and the Housing Authority. Our goal was to serve 110 households by June 30th, and we're well on our way to exceeding that mark. So thanks so much for funding the Buncombe Rental Assistance Collaborative. Appreciate you.
Okay.
Good afternoon. We have no project that's on the agenda for today, but I do want to just express my appreciation for having been afforded the opportunity to speak on behalf of 2 nonprofits which are African American led here in Buncombe County. I also want to remind you that the performance audit from the Stop the Harm audit done by a firm out of Florida was presented to the Reparations Commission, of which I've been appointed by Buncombe County last night. And also, I guess it was just very daunting for me, even though we knew the data and we knew it was where it was just very daunting and I guess kind of disconcerting to hear it. And I just want to remind everyone, and most of all myself, that representation is important, and that as developers, especially for affordable housing, we're right at the forefront. A lot of us are, but we've been previously left out. So I know that some of y'all are looking forward, you 2 commissioners are, to hearing that report at 3:00 p.m., and I hope to be in the room. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? All right. Thanks to our commenters this afternoon. Have you had a chance to look over the minutes, Commissioner Sloan?
It seems like I should be the one
I think so.
between this board full of so many members. Motion to approve the previous meeting's minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. All right, we'll jump right in then to our presentations and our short-term rental conversion pilot program with Rafael Baptista. Thanks, Rafael.
Okay, they say it's on, so
I say it's hot.
pretend it's on. Well, good afternoon, commissioners. Excited to talk to you about the short-term rental conversion pilot. So what we'll do today is talk a little bit about the background, how we got to here today, a little about the actual proposal, and then give you some options for potential next steps. So as a reminder, as part of the kind of the follow-up work to the 2043 comprehensive plan, the board did ask staff to look at options for how to convert short-term rental units into long-term rentals, ideally affordable rentals. So we presented those options to you all back in December to the full board and received direction to issue an RFI to see what kind of program or proposal we could see coming out of there. Thrive Asheville was to only respond into that RFI. So been working with them to refine the proposal. And what you'll hear today is the proposal they have brought forward. So a little bit of contextual data just to kind of level set us before we go into specific proposal. Current policy allows the county to pay for 10% of the construction cost per unit and 20% of the cost per LIHTC unit. And the current average subsidy for projects coming out of this committee for new construction is $19,647 per unit. Units are required to remain affordable for 20 years, and LIHTC units are required to remain affordable for 30 years. So just to kind of level set and remind us that as we go into this. So if we go into the Thrive proposal, the focus of this proposal is on households making between 50% and 80% AMI. You heard Kat talk a little about their existing rental assistance program just a few minutes ago in public comment, which targets households making less than 50%. So this is a new target audience that they would be working on. I'll go into each of these items into more detail individually, but overall, there's a couple of major components to this proposal. There's a discovery phase, which is really understanding how this could work. There's a marketing campaign, a setup of the program, application and leasing period, then kind of the ongoing management and evaluation. All in, we're looking at somewhere in the ballpark of 21 months from start to finish. Additionally, you took a look at a ballpark total cost of $240,000, $390,000. So we'll start with the discovery phase. And I will note that from a staff perspective, we would encourage that any agreement, if we were to move forward with this, that we essentially say we commit initially to the discovery phase, and then based on how the discovery phase goes, decide on whether to continue going with the program. So the discovery phase would take about 3 months at a cost of $15,000. And ultimately, what we're trying to understand out of this discovery phase is, will this program work? And if the program can work, what is the incentive amount needed to make this work? And what are some non-financial incentives that potentially could be used to further attract short-term rental property owners, such as tenant recruitment and selection? And if this program does work, we would come out of the discovery phase with a blueprint for pilot implementation. So that's kind of step one. And that would include focus groups with short-term rental property owners and surveys of property owners and tenants. We would then move on to phase two, which would be a marketing campaign to promote the program to solicit property owners and tenants. So this is going to include a website, printed materials, and digital marketing, and other efforts to encourage people to enter in a program. This would take approximately about 2 months at a cost of $15,000. The next is kind of the application period and leasing. This period kind of lines up a little bit with the marketing, so there'll be some overlap here. But Thrive would do full service management of the program, so they would fully manage it for us. They would screen and match tenants and property owners. Upon the signing of the lease, the property owner would receive 1/3 of the incentive amount. And the outcome here would be turnkey management of pilot program that converts 20 short-term rentals into long-term rentals on a 1-year lease. At $60,000, wrong button. $60,000. I swear we should make the clicker standard across all the meeting rooms in this county. And then the last phase of this is kind of the ongoing management and final report of the program. So this is where they're managing the program, they're doing lease compliance monitoring. At the 6-month mark, property owners would receive 1/3 of the incentive amount. And then at the end of the lease, they would receive the final 1/3 of the incentive amount. And you can see in there kind of all the data that would be included in the report they provide us. But generally, what we'd be learning is what kind of properties were converted, who was renting those properties, and understanding them, and what employers were served. And one of the things that we'd be really interested in knowing is how many of these rentals, once they've been converted, do they maintain to their leases get renewed? And then if our property owners and tenants satisfied with the program and the pilot. So this table here is a set of ranges for what the incentive could be that Thrive did develop based on their market research. Again, the discovery phase could impact these ranges, but you can generally see the larger the unit, the larger the incentive. Looking at studio to 3 bedrooms. say anything beyond a 3-bedroom is probably not cost viable. But you can see that the total incentive range is somewhere between $135,000 and $275,000 for 20 units. Any questions at this point?
Got one, Raphael, I'm sure this has been tried other places,
Yes.
and this was probably a model from somewhere else. I'm just curious from where and what kind of, I don't know, what kind of, how similar was it? What kind of outcomes did you find?
Yeah, so we looked at Sedona, Arizona. We looked at a community in California. We looked at Portland, Maine, and then Big Sky, Montana. I would say of those programs, some were successful, some were not successful. It really came down to the amount of the incentive. Communities that offered small incentives tended to not have a lot of success. What makes this one slightly unique in the way this is proposed, and this really has to speak to the unique, general statutes in North Carolina, is the focus on affordable housing. So most of the other programs had restrictions around, they wanted it to not be for very wealthy families, but their income restrictions were a little less restrictive. Here in North Carolina, we really have to target this money to affordable housing.
Yeah.
So again, generally speaking, the larger the incentive, the more likely you are to have success.
So in light of the short-term rental work being done in conjunction with the comprehensive plan, how does this tie into that? Just from a larger, broader picture, this almost feels like a little bit more of an offshoot of that. Should we be having this conversation as part of that overall short-term rental conversation with the planning board?
So I think the way to think about it is there's, I guess, 2 ways I think about it. One is if the proposed text amendment as written moves forward, a property that does participate in this program would be ineligible to return to being a short-term rental under the proposed text amendment. So in that situation, the property may or may not remain affordable long-term beyond that 1 year, but it would presumably become a long-term rental long-term.
If it went through the other process?
Yeah.
Okay.
If the text amendment either gets modified or does not pass as written, you would essentially be, paying to have up to 20 new additional affordable housing units for 1 year. Potentially, those could expand and stay long-term rentals long-term, but you don't have the same level of certainty of that. So this is, again, kind of a total end-up cost. One of the things that Thrive has also proposed as part of this pilot would be a rental gap assistance. So the idea here is the landlord would receive, a lump sum financial incentive paid over 3 payments for making the conversion. And then additionally, if there's a gap between how much they're able to collect, they would normally be able to collect in rent if they went out to the market versus what they're allowed for affordable housing purposes, Thrive would provide them a little bit of assistance in bridging that gap, which is $10,000 to $20,000. So all in, again, you're looking at $240,000 to $390,000 for at a 20 units. You're looking at a ballpark of $12,000 to $19,000 a unit. And as a reminder, the current standard unit subsidy right now is $19,600 coming out of the Affordable Housing Support Program. So from a staff perspective, we've identified really 4 potential next steps you all could take. Step number 1 is if you all want and you have follow-up questions, you want more information, more than happy to come back to the next meeting. Option number 2, and a reminder, option 2 and 3, which are kind of moving forward this program, we'd only be committing to the discovery phase at this moment. So with option number 2, we would fund the $15,000 for the discovery phase using existing remaining funds in the Affordable Housing Support Program in this fiscal year. So you'd be able to do your discovery phase in May through July. And then we would look to request funding for the balance of the program as part of the FY25 affordable housing budget request. So in that world, we would walk out, enter into more formal contract negotiation with Thrive, go to briefing on April 2nd, request a vote to approve this, from the board on April 16th, and then discovery May and July. So that's option 2. Option 3 is y'all can recommend that we request the full cost of the program in the FY25 affordable housing budget request. At that point, this program would not start until July. Option 4 is y'all can determine that you do not want to move forward. At that point, I would then go to a board briefing and provide that information to the board, to the full board. So those are my slides. Happy to answer any questions and take any direction from you all.
So let me make sure I understand this. If we were to go with option 2,
Yes.
we would do 15,000 now, and then would we go ahead and set aside the remaining in case we did prove it to be viable in FY25 budget, so that we weren't having to
You have
come
it
back and ask
available,
for it.
Yes.
Okay.
And that also gives you a pause to see how things work out with the regulations. If you want to.
Okay, that's a great point. Thank you. What do you think, Parker?
I like. Okay, both option 2 and 3 involve discovery beginning in July.
No,
Sort of?
option 2 discovery would start in May, so
Okay.
we would finish by July. So it's really kind of moving up.
Oh, I
the
see. Yeah, yeah,
timeline
yeah.
2 months.
Now I get it.
Yeah.
I like option 2.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that way we're ready to go. If it proves that it's implementable.
Okay.
We can implement it. All right, do you have a motion?
I appreciate the do nothing at the bottom. That's
Do we need a full, or do not? Do we need a motion?
If you, I think that if you're making a recommendation to the commissioners from this committee, yes.
All right,
I will. I think I'm in charge of motions.
I think you are.
I will move to recommend option number 2 listed on this slide to the full county commission.
And I can second that. Any further discussion? If no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we have the motion passes to move forward with 15,000 discovery phase using current year funding.
All right, thank you all. Appreciate it. See you
Thanks,
later at the
Raphael. We
commission
appreciate the work of you and your team bringing this forward to
meeting.
us.
Of course. Was
Thank
happy to
you.
help.
Thanks, Raphael.
All right. And we are going to move into our AHSP returning construction applications review. And I think Jonathan Jones is going to take the lead for us.
I will start us off. So what we have to share with you today are the 5 applications that were submitted from projects that have been funded by the county in previous allocation cycles. 2 of those projects are located just in the county, and 3 of those are located also within city limits. We have in this breakdown provided a summary of the requests and also differentiated between the existing funds that have been awarded as well as any additional funds on top of that to provide the project total request. So just to help understand that some of the projects in their initial application provided a single request, but it included the previous funds. So some of that was detailed in the individual staff reports that were provided, but just wanted to point that out as we review all of the requests together. And just to give you all a sense of where the projects are located, a bird's eye view spread throughout our geography. This, again, is just the returning applications. So over the next couple of meetings, we will be adding additional stars to this map and to give you an idea of where all of the construction projects will be occurring. What we will do now, we've got the couple of team members that were in charge of the individual project reviews. So I will turn that over to each one of them as we go forward, and then we'll take questions as we go along. First one we have is Glenbridge with Jake.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I will be discussing Asheville Area Habitats for Humanity's request for Glenbridge Phase 2. While this applicant is returning, it is an additional 5 units on the existing project. So previously, they were awarded HSP funds as well as ARPA funds for the initial 29 homes. And this would be 5 more homes in that community, bringing the total to 34. They're requesting $136,954 from AHSP to support a total project cost of $1,369,543. They do own the site. They have completed the infrastructure to 29 of the homes there and are under construction on 9 of those homes. They are moving. The status of development for these 5 homes are awaiting approval from the Board of Adjustment. So these 5 homes are on a lot that was previously just one single home. So they need to go through the Board of Adjustment, and upon approval, they have indicated that they would be ready to hit the ground running. Majority of the funding in this project comes from Habitat's internal private funding. So programs and sponsorships like Adopt a Lot, house sponsorships, and also just revenue and earned income that Habitat is providing. And then the goal with their request from the Affordable Housing Service Program would be that it is a 0% interest loan for construction that converts to DPA, which is ultimately aligned with our policy on down payment assistance. Here we can see the income targeting, the unit mix, and the target populations. So like I said, there would be 2 townhomes, 4 townhomes in total, and then 1 single family home. And staff have identified that the committee may recommend a construction loan up to $136,954 for a 5-year term to be converted to down payment assistance for income eligible home buyers. And I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Questions? All right,
Straightforward.
keep going.
All right. So the next project is something that you're probably familiar with, you've seen before. This is the Laurelwood project. This is a project in South Asheville. Just as a reminder, this is a 104 unit development. It's currently half of that is currently existing right now, and they're basically going to double the number of units on the parcel of land. This is a project that you reviewed 2 years ago. You awarded $800,000 to the project, and they have been kind of continuing that commitment up until now. They've come back to essentially ask for that $800,000 again, but ask for it under new program guidance, which would allow for tax exemption. When factoring in the tax exemption, that does kind of allow them to pencil the numbers out and that pro forma out so that they can make things work. And about 5% vacancy, they really can make this project a reality. As you see from this next slide, they've done a lot of work over the last 2 years to really kind of solidify their committed funds. They've put together some creative tools in order to make all this work. I think tax exemption kind of falls under that as a creative tool to kind of finalize those numbers. But you can see they've got everything really committed and ready to go. So they are pretty much ready to break ground and start construction. The AMIs for the units that they propose are really all over the place. They're kind of in all ranges of AMI, and they are only proposing 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. And they serve generally, all the populations for the most part. So the recommendation here today is to reallocate that $800,000 award to the Laurelwood project. And that would then, of course, allow them to seek tax exemption. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah.
Okay. The next project is Maribel. So LDG multifamily submitted an application requesting $1,824,502 as an addition to their existing fiscal year 24 AHSP award. And so the total request is listed up there, just over 10 million. The project cost has gone up around $1.5 million, and that new cost is reflected up here. And this is one of our 4% LIHTC award projects. They're located in Weaverville. They're undergoing planning development review with our planning department currently, and they're making progress there. And they also have an option on the property. So LDG estimated that their 4% LIHTC award will produce just over 15 million in their equity for their capital stack. Their permanent financing is tax exempt bonds that were approved through NCHFA, and that'll produce $24,186,000 for their permanent loan. They also have a $500,000 home award, and they plan to defer 1.4 million, which equates to 46% of their developer fee. So this slide's showing the proposed unit mix and targeted AMIs or AMI targets. 18% of the units will be accessible for persons with disabilities, and they intend for 58% of the units to assist households with vouchers. And so they'll be requesting those through the Housing Authority. So the Affordable Housing Committee may recommend up to the existing award 8.468195 to be reallocated to the fiscal year 25 application cycle and allow the project to, so this is one option, allow the project to seek property tax exemption if they bring on a nonprofit entity. While the applicant has not included a nonprofit entity in the proposed partnership and the AHSP policy does not require projects to pursue tax exemption, our analysis shows that in doing so would allow the project to attract additional permanent loan sources and balance their pro forma. Alternatively, the Affordable Housing Committee could recommend up to the maximum loan amount of $10,292,697, which equates to 20% of the cost per affordable unit. Any questions?
You had any updated conversations with them about where they are in the process of potentially partnering with a nonprofit?
So the last email that we had, conversation that we had, indicated that they could explore that. It would potentially mess with their closing timeline, but they did not eliminate that as an option. This would be my, Jonathan, do you have any? Yeah, that's our take on it.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Okay, the next project is Redwood Commons. So the Buckeye Community Hope Foundation submitted an application requesting $1,932,816 as an addition to their existing $226,000 fiscal year 24 AHSP allocation for their 70-unit senior housing development in Asheville. The project cost is listed up there. That's about $1 million more than last year's application is how much it's gone up. It's one of our 9% LIHTC award projects. And they've received conditional zoning approval through the city, but not yet final development approval. And they have an option on their site, but and they're currently undergoing a mitigation process through the North Carolina DEQ Brownfields program to address some contaminated areas on the site. So Buckeye estimated that their 9% LIHTC award will produce just over 10 million in equity for their capital stack. They also received an $800,000 RPP loan and $1.8 million award from the Asheville Housing Trust Fund. They secured a permanent loan of $2 million and also indicated the use of a $20,000 rate lock refund. And they plan to defer $261,234 or 24.8% of their developer fee. And then this slide is depicting the unit mix and AMI targets for the project. 12.9% of the units will be accessible for persons with disabilities, and 10% of the units will assist individuals experiencing homelessness. The applicant also indicates that 25% of the units will assist households with vouchers. So the Affordable Housing Committee may recommend a loan of up to $1,932,970, which equates to 10% of the cost per affordable unit. Staff anticipate, based on the operating pro forma, that there would be no prepayment of principal, and cash flow would potentially not be sufficient to cover the accrued interest at year 20. And our analysis also indicates that they would need to identify alternative sources such as the home funds, which are currently open through the city of Asheville, to complete the capital stack and inform an updated operating pro forma. Any questions?
A quick one. I can't picture the site plan for this one. Is it right on Sparrow River Road, or is it back off its own kind of access point?
Yeah, to the corner of Swanano River Road and Governor's View Road, right there, kind of that wedge. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I got this one.
You know, that road is washing away entirely, and DOT is kind of all looking at each other, wondering what to do about it. But
So through the Brownfields program, they're working with engineers to figure out how to address some of those floodway issues. And
Okay.
things like that. So that'll be addressed.
okay, great.
Thanks. It's good to know. Thanks.
They as in this developer, or you?
Yes.
you- Okay, okay, great. Cool.
Then the final request would be the Star Point project from Mountain Housing Opportunities. This request was for $2 million to support their 60-unit development off of Tunnel Road. This project is moving forward with a tax credit, with a 9% tax credit award from 2023. The property is currently owned, and that was made possible with the funding from the City of Asheville's Housing Trust Fund at $850,000. Taking a look at their capital stack, the county already has made a commitment of $500,000 as an Affordable Housing Service Program loan. The request was made at $2 million as staff reviewed the pro forma. One of the elements that we looked at was the potential for the tax exemption and for the agency to use those funds to attract additional permanent financing. That has indicated that they are in favor of using that tool. So the actual gap that we identified would be lower, and we also have learned that the MHO has reached out to the City of Asheville and made application for the Housing Trust Fund. Both of those requests at the gap they identified of 1.5 million. So that's not a combined $3 million ask. That is one ask of 1.5 million that could be addressed by the city and the county collectively. Taking a look at the targeted impacts, this project would intend to serve households between 30 or below 60% AMI down to 30 and below, and addressing a number of target populations. Specifically, they have units that are intended to serve youth households, which isn't reflected within any of our target populations in the application. So looking at the pro forma and the capital stack, we project that the committee could recommend a loan up to $1,341,007. That would be if the county were to try to address their gap on its own, considering the potential investment for the Housing Trust Fund, an equal commitment would look something more in the $1 million ballpark from each entity to close their stakes. Any questions? So taking a look at some of the analysis that staff conducted, and one of the questions I just wanted to kind of address was how we evaluate the projects. And when we talk about vacancy rates in the staff report, it's often a requirement of the banks or the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency that the underwriting be conducted considering a 7% vacancy rate. And so we want to compare how that project's income would support debt and be able to generate cash flow to repay any interest or any of the principal on the loans that we would provide. Some of the questions that we received from applicants were, why we would consider those vacancy rates any lower than that, even though the standard underwriting is at 7%. And so I just wanted to point out as we look at those, and it's a small increase that we see, but it allows these projects at a lower vacancy rate, a little more reflective of our community, that they would have a better potential for repaying some of the principal and interest on these loans. So not to assume that that would be the rate, but just to look at what the standard is and then what we might consider as a potential reality there. We also wanted to look at, as these are returning applications, identify that the rental construction requests have already been previously funded. So we would not be considering any additional impacts towards the rental goals. But we would, outside of any minor adjustments to their proposed unit mixes. For the Habitat for Humanity request as a homeownership project, we could see a marginal increase towards our goals there. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. And then finally, just kind of summarizing the 5 requests that we've reviewed here. They all appear like they would fit within the Affordable Housing Service Program requirements. And intend to break ground as required before June of next year. I will say that the Redwood Commons project, still showing a gap in their project, would need to close that. So we would still need to see some progress there. But as they are presented, we feel it would be reasonable to recommend full or partial awards for these projects. Before we move on to any next steps, just make sure that there are any questions about those 5.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm super impressed by the LIHTC leverage on the Starpoint project. That's amazing to see. Agree. Yeah, no, Amanda, I don't have. I knew most of this.
All right.
All right, I think we're set.
So for our next steps, we will be considering the new construction requests. There are 6 of those that are in the process of being reviewed by staff. We will provide those draft reports to the applicants to give them the opportunity to make sure that we understood their request and that there were any clarifications necessary. Provide those to the committee for review, and then offer any individual meetings to answer questions that you may have, any feedback for the applicants, or any follow-up questions for the applicants. Based on the schedule that we have discussed previously, the next meeting would be April 16th. To review those requests, and then all of the requests, the grant requests, the new construction, and the returning applications would then be up for consideration at the April 23rd.
We were holding the 30th just in case.
Just in case. That would be the target date to share the information for budget.
Barney was thinking all this week that we canceled the regular meeting on April 2nd, but it was just, he was thinking it was this week.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we canceled this one for spring break. We just want to talk about that later. All right. Are there any announcements?
So.
No. All right. With that, we have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you very much.
Obi. Yeah. I just,